Good afternoon. So, welcome back to our next installment of this series of going through the books of the Bible. Just a brief summary. And this is, we're in the book of Exodus. If you didn't see the one on the book of Genesis, you can go back and just watch it. So, again, I want to recap and I'll say that what led me and what inspired me to do these videos was I found an article on a brief outline of the 66 books of the Bible, and I'm going to link it on every single one, on every single video that I do. I'm going to link it here. But it was very brief. So, and as I said, there's so much information, so many lessons, so many stories, accounts in all of the books of the Bible. And through them, we get to know God, and we get to know, just as importantly, who we are to God and how He works together with us to accomplish His purpose, and how we are created in His image. And anyway, so just to go watch Genesis, the first book, first video that I did, and this one I'm going to read what the brief outline of that article had, and then I'm just going to read what I wrote. As I said, there's so much in all these books that you can't give it justice just by doing a one paragraph, as this article has done. And even I extrapolated some stuff from it and went a little further, but even with that, it doesn't do it justice. I mean, you could spend a whole year in just one book of the Bible and diving into everything that it's telling us and teaching us. So in this article in Exodus, it says, the children of Israel now living in Egypt are forced into slavery. God prepares an Israelite named Moses to lead the people to freedom. Pharaoh's heart is hardened not to let the slaves go. So God sends a series of plagues upon the Egyptians. Moses leads the Israelites through the Red Sea, which God miraculously parts for them, and he leads them to Mount Sinai. Camped at Mount Sinai, the Israelites receive the law of God, including the 10 Commandments. The law is the basis of a covenant between God and people. He has rescued these people, and His promised blessings for them through their obedience to Him. The people promised to uphold God's covenant with them. So anyway, that's all the article says. How brief it is. That's really brief. I mean, it's just so much. Just in the plagues themselves, just in their journey through the wilderness, and so much more. There's so many things we can glean from all those accounts. But anyway, so this is what I wrote, and I focused somewhat on the plagues. The Israelites were made slaves because the Lord had blessed them in the land of Egypt, and their numbers had multiplied. This is a continuation. This is at the end. If you go read the book of Genesis, chapter 37 through 50, I said that's the life of Joseph. And you read there, at the end of Genesis, you see how Pharaoh, how Joseph found favor in Pharaoh's eyes, and how he accepted Joseph's family, and so on. And then in the beginning of Exodus, it tells you about how the Israelites increased in number. So the Pharaoh and his leaders became fearful of Israel's numbers. Now, keep in mind, this Pharaoh is just a title for a leader, like we have president. This Pharaoh that became fearful of the Israelites was not the Pharaoh of Joseph's time. He was a Pharaoh, maybe 2 or 3 forward. Their last plague was the death of all the firstborn in Egypt. Okay, the last plague was the death of all the firstborn in Egypt. The Hebrews were spared from death by putting the blood of a spotless lamb on the wooden doorposts of their homes. This is a foreshadowing of Jesus' blood being poured out on the wooden cross for the salvation from eternal death. To all who would acknowledge their sins and ask for forgiveness and repent, which means to turn away from those things that always keep you in sin, and to receive Jesus into your heart and ask Him to be Lord of your life. So real quickly, the 10 plagues were the Nile was turned to blood, the land was filled with frogs, there were gnats and insects in this third plague. The flies were swarm. There was a swarm of flies. There was disease on the farm animals. People broke out in boils and blisters. The worst storm Egypt ever saw. So many locusts, and there was locusts in another plague that turned the sky black, and there was darkness for 3 days. That's some of the things that the plagues brought. And all of the plagues, God gave people the opportunity to listen to him. This is the key point in this video. In all the plagues, God gave people the opportunity to listen to him, to trust and believe in him. After the plagues of darkness, Pharaoh had these harsh words for Moses. Pharaoh said to Moses in Exodus chapter 10, verse 28 and 29, "Get out of my sight. Make sure you do not come to see me again. If you do, you will die." And Moses replied, "I'll do just as you say. I will never come to see you again," because he knew that this was the last plague that the Lord was going to bring upon Egypt. Everyone living in Egypt at that time saw these plagues, but not everyone listened to God. It is possible to see what God is doing and still not trust and believe in God. God gave the people of Egypt many opportunities to listen, and now he is going to send the most dreadful plague of all. God is sending the world many messages today, but the world has become blind and deaf. And just like that horrific last plague in Egypt, a 7-year plague is also coming upon this world, as Jesus tells us in Matthew 24, where it says, "For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been since the beginning of the world until this time. No, nor ever shall be." And also in Daniel chapter 12, it says, "At that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people. And there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time your people shall be delivered, every one who is found written in your book." In my humble opinion, the book of Exodus is the greatest example in the Old Testament of 1, God's love, mercy, and grace towards us. 2, our stubbornness and propensity to murmur and complain against God, no matter how many times he has provided and delivered us from trials. The lessons to us in the book of Exodus are countless and life-giving, but we must remember to remain humble and not quickly judge the Hebrews during their wandering in the wilderness. At times, we can also be stubborn, stiff-necked people, just like they were. When things don't go our way, when we want them to go our way, we become stubborn against God and we get angry. Or when we feel God has forgotten us. But God's promise to us in Deuteronomy 31:6 says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them. For the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you." I encourage you to dive into the book of Exodus and see how God blessed the Israelites, how he led them, and yes, even how he punished and corrected them for their disobedience. I pray that you would turn to this book and that you would ask the Lord, "Lord, open my eyes so that I may not just see, but also learn from the lessons in this powerful book." Even if you've read Exodus once or numerous times, I encourage you, dive back into the book, because we always receive messages through God's word that perfectly fit to whatever we are going through in that moment. So that's the book of Exodus, and just a brief thing that I could have took stuff in the wilderness and the stubbornness and all the meanings behind everything, like how the Israelites, how they were punished and how they murmured when they only received manna, bread, and then they wanted quail. They wanted meat, so the God gave them quail, and they even complained with that. It's like, I look at people nowadays, and especially people who have a lot of money, have a lot of possessions. I mean, that's why it's important to learn how to be content in everything. Just as Paul says, I have learned to be content when I have and when I don't have, okay? So anyway, so we should be the same thing. We should be content with what we have. But I see so many people in the world that want more and more and more. Even these rich people that I see, that they want more and more. I say to myself, how much is enough? I feel that sadly those people overcome to the point where they don't learn contentment. and they don't really truly appreciate the things that they have. They just want more. They're like hoarders, for lack of a better word. So anyway, so that's the end of this. So I encourage you to go read the rest of this book. This whole book is so many lessons that the Lord has for us. And people say, well, the Bible's old, it's antiquated, it doesn't apply to today. That's so far from the truth, because the things that we see that happen in this book, we can also see it happening in our lives, and we can also see it happening in the world. Okay, so my next video for this series, I'm probably gonna do 3 books together. It's gonna be a short video. It's gonna be the tough books of Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. Those 3 books, for me at least, they're hard, because it's just basically Mosaic laws, and it's just how to do things and keep certain laws and keep certain things, which some of those things, well, most of those things don't apply to us. But some do, but also, even if they don't apply to us, there are lessons to be learned in these very powerful books. So I'll do those 3 next week, which probably come out. I'll probably post a video hopefully on Tuesday. As I said, I wanted to do 2 videos a week, so on Tuesday and Friday. So today being Friday, I'm going to post this one up. And also I hope to tomorrow, or at worst Sunday, post my second video on that cancer survivors essay. If you didn't watch that video, I highly recommend that you go back and watch it. I titled it A Cancer Survivor's Essay, and it was just an essay by somebody who survived cancer, and a young lady. And instead of making it too long, I chose to break it up into, at minimum, 2 videos. If I have to do a third, I'll do a third, but I don't want to make the videos too long. So anyway, God bless you, and have a nice weekend, and look for those upcoming videos.